Let's turn our attention to what has been a very eventful week in the United States. A busy first week back in the office for President Donald Trump, signing a flurry of executive orders and issuing waves of pardons.
Now, among those pardoned are many of his nearly 1,600 supporters who were arrested for storming the US Capitol building in 2021. It's raised questions about the president's view about what happened that day and of how American justice works. Our analysis editor, Ros Atkins, has more.
January the 6th, 2021 looked like the end of Donald Trump's political career. Over 1,500 of his supporters would be charged for actions including attempting to overthrow the government, assaulting police officers and obstructing the certification of the election result. But it was far from the end. And on the campaign trail, Donald Trump signalled he was considering pardoning those convicted. On precisely who, Vice President J.D. Vance said recently, if you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned. In many cases, that's exactly what's happened. On the day he returned to power, Donald Trump called the January the 6th prisoners hostages, which they aren't. And here at the White House, he pardoned almost all of them. Others had their sentences commuted, which means they'll be released, but their convictions remain on the record. One of them is Stuart Rhodes, founder of the far-right militia group, the Oath Keepers. He received 18 years for trying to overthrow the government. Another is Jacob Chansley, whose image became closely associated with the riot.
I got the news from my lawyer when I was at the gym, and I walked outside and I screamed freedom at the top of my lungs and then gave a good Native American war cry.
Then there's the former leader of the far-right group, the Proud Boys. Henry Enrique Tarrio was serving 22 years, also for planning to overthrow the government.
Good to be out.
He's received a full pardon. And since his release, he's claimed they didn't care about the evidence. They cared about putting Trump supporters in prison. Well, now it's our turn, he said, adding the people who did this, they need to feel the heat. They need to be put behind bars. Many others involved have been pardoned too, and the outrage from some is palpable. One police officer who was attacked on January the 6th says, "I have been betrayed by my country." The biggest police union, which endorsed Trump during the election, said the pardon sent a dangerous message. And one legal analyst says that the move corrupts the rule of law and rewrites history. But to Donald Trump, the January the 6th convictions are an example of how, in his eyes, the justice system isn't working and has been used to attack him and his supporters. On January the 6th itself, we heard a similar message, that America's democracy wasn't working. Donald Trump came here to the ellipse with the White House behind him, and as the certification of his defeat loomed, he told supporters to peacefully and patriotically make their voices heard. He also said this.
And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
After the speech, the crowd, hundreds and hundreds strong, moved towards the Capitol. As they walked, Trump supporters shouted, "Stop the steal," echoing his false claim that the election had been stolen, a claim he's repeated since returning to the presidency. Soon enough, the crowd would reach its destination and force its way into the Capitol. The building they attacked is the building where, 4 years later, their man, Donald Trump, was again sworn in as president, and where, hours before their pardons, he'd emphasise the importance of law and order. But only in certain circumstances, it seems. Last year, Donald Trump was convicted on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. And the man who led US government investigations into him believes that if he hadn't been re-elected, the volume of evidence means Donald Trump would have been convicted of election interference too. Donald Trump dismisses such claims. He argues all the cases against him were politically motivated. And for him, these January the 6th pardons reinforce his message that the justice system can be political and unjust. It's a claim his critics fear will apply to him in his second term. According to NPR, Trump himself has made more than 100 threats to prosecute or punish perceived enemies. Across the road from the Capitol building is the Supreme Court, which recently gave presidents partial immunity from criminal prosecution. Law and politics have always, to some degree, been intertwined in America, but on the day that power changed hands, we saw the extent to which that's now the case. In December, Joe Biden pardoned his son Hunter, who was facing sentencing for 2 criminal cases. Then, minutes before he left office, he preemptively pardoned a number of people, including other members of his family and members of the House committee that investigated January the 6th. He referenced concern about politically motivated prosecutions. Soon after, Vice President J.D. Vance was sworn in by Brett Kavanaugh, one of 3 appointees to the Supreme Court chosen by Donald Trump. Later, the new president issued his January the 6th pardons. After watching this play out, Politico reported that both presidents, on the same day, stretched the pardon power to new, questionable frontiers in wildly different ways. The following day, Ross Ulbricht was also pardoned. He operated a dark web marketplace called Silk Road and in 2015 was found guilty of charges including conspiracy to commit drug trafficking, money laundering and computer hacking. On this, Donald Trump posted, "The scum that worked to convict him were some of the same lunatics who were involved in the modern-day weaponization of government against me. He was given 2 life sentences plus 40 years. Ridiculous," said the president. And on his return to power, there's one word that Donald Trump has been using a lot.
And I will win for you. We're going to win like never before.
Right now, Donald Trump is winning. He's president, and his political success rests in part on a sense of grievance that America's institutions are against him and can't be trusted. But with each attack on the justice system, with each pardon, faith in the fairness of American justice is being tested. And the distinction between law and politics becomes harder to make out.